Part of European interest in North America was the fur trade, which became the primary economic activity driving colonial relationships. For the indigenous peoples of North America, fur trapping was an established practice, and they had long traded fur with each other, long before Europeans arrived. However, European goods such as metal tools, firearms, and textiles were in high demand by Native Americans, who were eager to establish trade relations with the newcomers. However, the trade was not without complications. The competition for fur resources led to tensions between European powers, as the French, Dutch, and later the English all sought to dominate these valuable networks. European colonial agents often relied on Native Americans for guidance, forming alliances and trading agreements in exchange for protection and access to trade routes. The colony's growing needs. Boston, 1630s. The new Massachusetts Bay Colony is struggling to establish its identity, while also grappling with the pressure to become a more prosperous and educated settlement. The local leaders gather at a town hall meeting to discuss how the colony's future could be secured through education. The colony's leaders, including Reverend John Winthrop and prominent settlers, discuss the increasing importance of education for the colony's survival. They recognize that a well-educated populace is essential for the future, both for governance and to strengthen the economy. The proposal for a central educational institution arises, but there is one glaring issue: manpower, the struggle for labor. Boston Harbor, 1635. Prisoners of war, captured from Native American conflicts, work on various tasks around the colony. The colony's leadership turns their attention to the possibility of using their labor for more noble purposes. Winthrop and other leaders begin to discuss a controversial idea. The construction of the proposed Harvard Educational Center could be accelerated if the colony utilized all its available labor, prisoners of war as well as slave labor. Desperate times call for desperate measures. An agreement is made to forcefully use the labor of both groups to help build the university. Captured prisoners of war. A small holding area for Native American prisoners on the outskirts of the colony. The prisoners, who were captured in a recent skirmish, looked tired with little hope for their future. The Native American prisoners, some of whom were once leaders in their tribes, are informed that their work will help create something for the future of the colony. They are herded together and told that this is the only way to gain their freedom. Some are skeptical, but others see it as an opportunity to survive and perhaps one day rebuild their lives. The enslaved Native Americans, a small, modest plantation outside of Boston. Enslaved Native Americans and Europeans work in the fields under the oppressive heat, their lives dictated by the whims of their masters. The decision to involve them in the project is handed down from the colonial elites. The colony's elite landowners see enslaved labor as a resource to be maximized. A few wealthy individuals are tasked with providing the enslaved workforce for the construction of Harvard. Despite the brutality of their daily lives, the enslaved Native Americans, like the poor Europeans, are told they will earn their keep by working on a grand project that will be immortalized in history. They, too, are powerless to refuse. The beginning of construction. The construction site of the first Harvard buildings. A mix of exhausted and weary workers, both Native American prisoners of war and enslaved Native Americans and Europeans, are slowly building what will become a symbol of colonial ambition. The first stone is laid for Harvard University. The labor is grueling, with workers forced to haul heavy stones, cut timber, and construct rudimentary structures. Many of the workers' bodies show signs of exhaustion, but the overseers remain harsh and relentless. Some Native American prisoners attempt to escape, but the harsh conditions quickly force them back. A glimpse of hope and rebellion. A quiet evening near the construction site. A few prisoners of war and enslaved Native Americans gather around a campfire, sharing stories of their own and hopes for a better future. In the rare moments of rest, some of the workers bond. A young Native American prisoner named Dustu speaks of his tribe's past greatness and imagines a future where they regain control of their land. An enslaved Native American named Thomas talks about his tribe, the Wampanoag, which has been under the constant threat from foreigners. Despite the harshness of their current circumstances, these fleeting moments of solidarity provide a brief sense of hope. Tensions. Rise, the construction site, late afternoon. Tensions are high as a group of workers attempt to organize a work stoppage, frustrated with their mistreatment. Frustration reaches a boiling point. A few prisoners and enslaved workers begin to question their situation. They talk of rebellion and escaping into the forests of the colony. However, their plot is discovered by a loyalist overseer, and the group is severely punished. The thought of rebellion dies down, but resentment grows. The first building completed a partially completed building on the Harvard campus. The first classrooms and dormitories are taking shape, though the construction is far from finished. The first building at Harvard is completed, a symbol of colonial ambition and religious devotion. The colony's leaders, including Winthrop, gather to celebrate the milestone. But the workers, now weary and broken, know the cost of this achievement. The laborers look on, their faces hardened by toil. The irony of creating a center of education built on their backs is not lost on them. The legacy of labor. A few months later, at the completed Harvard University, the first group of students, mainly from wealthy colonial families, begins to arrive. Meanwhile, the laborers are quietly dispersed, their role in the university's construction erased from the official historical record. As Harvard officially opens its doors, the wealthy elite begin to send their children to study at the newly formed university. The laborers, once integral to the university's creation, are now given the option to become staff to Harvard. Some are sent back to their harsh lives as prisoners. Others, too, labor for new landowners. Their contributions are largely forgotten, swept under the rug of the colony's success. Reflection and resistance. A solitary evening in the wilderness, years after the university's founding. Dustu and Thomas, now free, sit together by a fire, reflecting on the past and the future. Years after the completion of Harvard in October 28, 1636, Dustu and Thomas meet once more. Both have escaped their former lives and have found some measure of freedom, though they are marked by their past. They reflect on the university, its bricks and walls built from their suffering, its legacy forever tied to their labor. Yet, they are resolute. They will continue to fight for the dignity of their people and ensure that their stories are told. As they sit around the fire, they share their determination to resist, to never forget the labor that built not just a university, but a foundation for future generations to demand justice.